Good morning. Lee Schlenker from the Business Analytics Institute. This morning's chat is with Nathan Kinch, the founder and CEO of Greater Than X. Nathan hails from the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia, and has been working over the last decade on the issues of privacy, ethics, and trust. His organization's current work is on open banking and data sharing practices. Nathan, delighted to have you online to talk about data ethics.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Brilliant. Let's jump right into it. Can you tell us, Nathan, who are you and what is your organization all about?
So I'm the co-founder and CEO of a firm called Greater Than X, and we've been around for about 3 years now. We were sort of founded on this belief that the most verifiably trustworthy organizations would become the organizations that people in society would value the most, and that these organizations would gain better access to the people that they serve, their customers, and as a result, deliver more value, more meaning, and engagement. And over the last 3 years, we've been developing a services business to work with organizations all around the world across financial services, telecommunications, big tech, research organizations to figure out how to systematically design products, services, business models, and operating structures that are truly worthy of consumer trust. And we've recently also embarked on the journey to build a micro-learning experience that will help bring a lot of this stuff to life in a more meaningful way and in a more light touch way, because services businesses are pretty hard yakka, as we'd say down here in Australia.
Nathan, that is quite an ambitious project around data ethics. But can you help the audience understand a little bit what data ethics is really about and why it matters today?
Look, absolutely. Arguably, ethics matters more now. And this sort of goes back to the discussion that we were having before around the destruction of our ecology and the potential of our contribution to it. Organizations and individuals all around the world are starting to question and make active decisions that relate to their viewpoints of morally right versus morally wrong. And data ethics it's an emerging field of study. It focuses on evaluating the moral challenges relating to how information is used. And the idea is by doing that, by actively engaging in those activities, we can develop morally good solutions. And there's a heap of work being done, a lot of academic work being done, but also big organizations like Accenture, Google, Microsoft, doing high profile stuff. A lot of that's focused on principles. You then have the UK government's Centre for Data Ethics and Innovation, the Open Data Institute, the work that the OECD is doing on AI ethics. The list goes on. And then as you get sort of more practical, there's things like Dion, which is a command line tool to support the operationalization of ethics principles. You've got the Ethics Centre, you've got the IEEE. It's just the time to be focusing on this stuff, particularly in the context of modern information business and modern information society, it seems to be now.
I believe the audience can identify with you, but may have some trouble understanding exactly what your work entails. Can you offer us some insight by focusing on some of the high impact projects you're currently working on?
So we have a reasonably distinct focus, and we work with lots of other organizations that do things like, algorithmic auditing, work with the Ethics Centre, actually engaged in a project with them, with one of our clients at the moment. They do a lot of stuff around helping organizations define their purpose, their values and principles. So a lot of that foundational stuff, helping interpret moral philosophy and make it meaningful in a modern organizational context. Our focus is on operationalizing data ethics frameworks. And to us, and there's no formal definition, so we sort of came up with our own, it's a working definition, but a data ethics framework is the consistent process that an organization executes to decide, to document and verify how its data processing activities are socially preferable. And by social preferability, we mean that their key stakeholder groups overwhelmingly support the activities that the organization's engaged in. So that's sort of the highest sort of value. We're currently working with big tech companies to translate their principles into meaningful action And that has quite a diverse and broad impact on an organization, in that it has the potential to shift the way that they set strategy, and therefore the authorizing environment that individuals operate in. It can change the way that incentive structures are designed, the types of qualitative, quantitative, across attitudinal and behavioral dimensions, the metrics that the organizations sort of live and breathe, the way that people are remunerated, all the way down to the simple little micro decisions that individuals are making on a daily basis that may have ethical implications as a result of trade-offs being made, how that's documented, how an organization's key stakeholders, regulators, independent advocacy groups and customers, how they're actually engaged in this process. And really what we're trying to do is develop quite a robust operating model, an ethical operating system, if you will, for modern information businesses. And that sort of starts often by working with boards and executive committees, but very quickly we have to get down in the weeds with modern product development workflows, data scientists, product designers, user experience designers, behavioral psychologists, product marketers, computer scientists and software engineers to figure out how to translate this stuff meaningfully in the context of their day-to-day work.
Nathan, I really like this idea of an ethical operating system. Surely ethics is more than a question of simply right and wrong. In our own research, we haven't found any one set of standards, any one code of ethics that fits all companies in all industries. Can you help us understand some of the practical considerations that modern corporations must address in this area today?
Maybe we can do that with sort of some examples, So I think you're absolutely right. Ethics is sort of bigger than right and wrong. It's kind of about active choices and decisions and the consciousness that we sort of hold dear as a species. And for modern information businesses, one of the biggest challenges, and I think perhaps something like programmatic advertising as an industry that right now is copping a lot of heat, or social media. The political advertising debacle. These are things that we're hearing a lot about. And I think a lot of it comes down to the way that sort of information asymmetries and power imbalances currently work in society. And if you look at, to the people viewing this or listening, thank you so much. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the concept of surveillance capitalism. There's some really good literature on this concept out there. And I sort of think of it, this is bordering on a reductionist viewpoint, so I apologize to everyone who has the time and inclination to dive deeper into this. But if you think of it rather simply, that we find ways to surveil people, and the perfect example of that is give them a free business, a business model, right? Facebook. Free product or service. Now, the Hungarian Data Protection Authority, so there's new case law, new precedent on this, right, has just fined Facebook 3.6 million euros for basically deceptive and misleading claims. Facebook claims that its business model is free, its product or service is free. Actually, it's not. People are paying with their attention, what they click, all this different type of stuff. They're trying to predict what you're going to buy, when you're going to lie, and when you might die. They're then selling this within a sort of an advertising ecosystem, and not selling your data directly to people, selling access to you. And so, the real challenging ethical trade-off in that context is, well, let's just say an organization like that buys into wellness as like a highest order value, and they're looking at existing bodies of literature to determine how they might go about measuring that. So wellness determinants, if you will. And there are a series of wellness determinants. Yet, in order to continue increasing revenues and sort of growing shareholder value, the organization needs to hook people to its product. They need people to spend more and more time within the product or service. Yet we're starting to learn more and more, particularly in the social sciences, that these technologies and what in many cases might be defined as an addiction to some of these technologies and the interactions, or rather the way that our limbic brain responds to the sort of variable reward systems that are designed into these technologies, that's actually really damaging for our wellness. So that's a really good big picture, like at the board level, at the executive committee level, a sort of idea of an ethical quandary. And for organizations to overcome that, they've got to do a lot of work. They've got to look in the mirror, and they've got to ask some tough questions, like what future do we want to be part of designing? Is the business that we're in today the business that we should be in, or should we shift course? And then it comes, like that's sort of at the top of the organization, right? That's almost like an existential thing for an organization that relies on people's information and monetizing people's information. But, there are things that individuals are doing on a daily basis that have a significant impact too. So let's just say you're a user experience designer and you're working as part of a modern product development team, and you're running dual track agile, which basically means you have discovery and delivery sprints. And let's say your discovery sprints, which are sort of exploratory, divergent, they're running about a month ahead of your delivery sprints. And your job is to sort of frame hypotheses and feed insights and bodies of evidence back into delivery streams so that the people responsible for delivering can execute with higher confidence intervals. And you might decide that there are a series of personas that you're going to develop. And although you might provide reasonably well-researched or evidence personas, those personas might have a variety of different biases embedded into them. And that's like, we're humans. We're like there's this thing called the Cognitive Biases Codex. There are hundreds of these things that most of us aren't aware of. And then as a result of that, you basically provide the fuel for your organization to systematically discriminate against a particular group of individuals. So it's all the way throughout the organization that this stuff very practically and demonstrably comes to life. And at least from my experience, I don't think there's a hard, fast rule, there's a magic pill that we can take. I think we just kind of have to do work. And we have to approach this with thoughtfulness, mindfulness, and intentionality. And wherever we can, if we can progress beyond this idea of just having principles on the wall towards having reasonably robust operating frameworks, systems, processes, practices, new metrics, new ways of working, new ways of collaborating, new ways of documenting, new ways of reporting what we're doing back into the organization, and importantly, transparently out to our external stakeholders, I think the greater likelihood we have to achieve outcomes and impact that is socially preferable for the greatest number of individuals. And going back to our climate thing, potentially the ecology at large.
Nathan, you've given us quite a bit to chew. Let's take a break here and wrap up part 1 of our interview with Nathan Kinch of Greater Than X Experience. Nathan began by offering us a definition of digital ethics. He then developed the notion of an ethical operating system and concluded by offering data scientists, managers, and their organizations some very practical considerations in addressing the challenges of data ethics today. We'll be back next week to continue part 2 of our interview with Nathan Kinch. See you then.